Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Muscarelle Museum. My name is Steve Prince, and I'm the Director of Engagement and Distinguished Artist in Resident here at the museum. And I just want to say welcome to you all for coming out this evening to hear our esteemed guest. But before we go into that, I'm going to have Sarah Wicker come up, and she's going to read the land acknowledgement.
Please join me in acknowledging and paying respects to the indigenous people who are the original inhabitants of the land we are on today. The Cherannahaka Nottoway, the Chickahominy, the Eastern Chickahominy, the Mattaponi, the Monacan, the Nezimun, the Nottoway, Pamunkey, Patawomek, Upper Mattaponi, and the Rappahannock tribes, and pay our respect to their tribal members past and present.
Thank you. I'm going to read a quote that Brother Dorsey asked me to share with you, and before I begin to do some introductions. Audiences for art don't just happen. They are developed and cultivated. With BAIA, Najee Dorsey has created a structure for doing just that. BAIA has become a valued platform for Black artists whose works might be otherwise overlooked, as well as making sure that those who might be new to the works of Black artists also know the substantial histories of those who have been pioneers in the field. Quote by Dawood Bey, MacArthur winner. Before I go into, give you just a little lay of the land in terms of what I'm going to try to cover before I introduce our guests, is that I want to make sure that I acknowledge some of our funders to the museum, and one being the MCV Foundation for VCU Health, and of the other being the Williamsburg Area Arts Commission. I want to let you know about the series of workshops that are still to come here in the Muscarelle Museum for this fall semester. We have a beautiful workshop. It's going to be called Plein Air Oil Pastel Drawing on Campus. And we're going to be going around outdoors, moving from place to place in some of the beautiful sites on this campus, using oil pastels, and I'll be sharing with people processes of doing atmospheric perspective, working with color theory, and just having a wonderful time just engaging the outdoors and seeing the beauty that lies all around us. We have a wonderful kids workshop, and then for those of you also a kid at heart, you're welcome to come on out to this workshop. And the first one is called Imaginary Beast and Stranger Things. And this one will be on November 5th. And it'll be from 10 to 12 p.m. And this particular workshop, we're going to be working with creating these imaginary animals and beasts and creatures that come directly out of your heart and pulling from history and creating something new and fresh for the world to see. And then our last workshop for this semester will be the Tiny Art Museum. And that one is strategically placed because at the very end of this semester in December, this museum will close. But don't dismay. It will reopen in about a couple of years, and if you look back over in the other room, the other gallery, you will see the model of what's to come. And so this space here will be refurbished. A new museum space will be added onto it, so we'll go from this space that we have now downstairs and upstairs about 17,000 square feet, and we'll add on an additional 50,000 square feet. So please keep your eyes and ears open for the wonderful programs that will still be going on even when we're closed. There will be different events that will take place all across the campus and throughout the community. We have a faculty lecture that'll be right here in this gallery where you're situated. And it'll be Elizabeth Moran, Associate Professor of Art History here at William & Mary, and she will be doing a talk on marking time and space, sacred landscapes in Afro-Caribbean art. That'll be on November 11th at 6 p.m. We also have a wonderful array of music that takes place in this space, and we'll have the gallery players will be here on November 9th at 7 p.m., and we also have the Middle Eastern Music Ensemble, which will be on November 17th at 7 p.m. So please make your way out to these beautiful events. And as you can hear my voice echoing across the walls, it has beautiful acoustics, and it is the absolute perfect place to come to enjoy and on some of the fabulous music that's being produced on this campus. And before I go into explaining about our explorations, I want to basically express what is all around you. Right now, this exhibition is basically been produced by the faculty here at William & Mary. And we have a whole beautiful array of works of drawings, paints, paintings, printmaking, and sculpture all around you. So please come back when the lights are all lit up, all properly inside the space, that you're able to take your time and to engage the various works that they've produced and see the world-class artwork that's right here in our community, and give them an opportunity to give love to our local heroes. So I would love to talk to you about the Muscarelle Aspirations and in our series. And so this fall, the Muscarelle Museum Exploration Series will focus on the dynamics of the international art market. Through a series of lectures, films, and book discussions, we will explore the dimensionality of the commercial side of the art world, learning from experts in the realms of making, selling, and collecting art. Just a few weeks ago, we had Joseph French. He was here, and he spoke about creating photography and also collecting it. And then last week, we had a film showing. It was called The Price of Everything. And that particular film showcased just some of the forces that are taking place within the art market, and that is shaping it and reshaping it on a daily basis. On November 3rd, we will have a lecture by Luis Salerno, and who is the founder and CEO of Questroval Fine Art, and he will give a lecture on the New York gallery scene. And then that lecture will be followed by Samantha Koslow, and who is the Director of Business Development and Head of Museum Services at Christie's. And that will take place on November 15th, also at 6 p.m., and it's the International Auction Market for Art. On November 19th, we have Elaine Ruffalo, who is an art historian, and she will give a special members lecture, The Artists in the Renaissance, The Dance with Patrons. And then to end off our season, our own director, David Bashir, and Gary Ryan, who is the director and CEO of Virginia MoCA, our Museum of Contemporary Art. They will do the Muscarelle's Reads Book Club, and they're focusing on the book, The Value of Art, Money, Power, Beauty, and it's by Michael Findlay. Which brings us to now, and why you're here this evening. And we're gonna have an opportunity to hear from Najee Dorsey, who is the founder and CEO of Black Art in America, developing the market for African American art. I'd love to share a bio on Mr. Dorsey. Najee Dorsey was born in Arkansas in 1973 and now resides in Atlanta, Georgia, with his wife, Sateria Dorsey. Najee is a visual artist, a gallerist, a producer, CEO, and founder of Black Art in America. Dorsey is known for embracing his Southern roots in his work and relaying on canvas stories untold but not forgotten of African American life. His art has been featured nationally at the Columbus Museum, the Charles Wright Museum, Clark Atlanta University Museum, and the Houston Museum of African American Art, to name a few. Mr. Dorsey established Black Art in America, also known as BAIA, in 2010 as an online media platform for African American artists, collectors, art enthusiasts, and art professionals. BAIA is the online portal and network that's focused on African American art, with visitors from over 100 countries visiting the site each month, and about 500,000 visitors to their social media platforms. BAIA's mission is to document, preserve, and promote the contributions of the African American arts community. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Najee Dorsey.
right. Thank you, Steve, for that. Appreciate it. Thank you for being such a gracious host and taking us around the community to Hampton, Norfolk, around this prestigious institution. And we're happy to be here. My wife, Satiri, and I, 28 years, right? Give her a round of applause for putting up with me for all this time, right? And supporting an artist. I kind of ramble from time to time, so just be patient. I'm gonna give you a short timeline of where I come from, but basically, primarily what we're doing as it relates to Black art in America. At the age of 5, my mom became my first patron. I would, take that money and she would give me those coins and go and buy candy. At the age of 12, I chopped cotton. Small town in Arkansas, probably one of the last generations of African Americans to participate in that, to make extra money in the summertime. I had a partial scholarship to the Memphis Academy of Art in '91, but after a few days of attending, I realized that the structured school just wasn't for me. But we built something special with Black Art in America, BAIA, as many call it. At one point, you could argue that we built a monument in the sky for Black visual culture. And I'm gonna walk you through this journey of some of the things that we do as a company to support the artists, collectors, to educate people about what's happening within the field, and also as well as the contributions of those that came before. But before I do that, let me just say I'm not lost on where we are right now. I'm at William and Mary, art school dropout that chopped cotton, talking to y'all about art. This luxury good, this thing that documents our culture and things that we live with and that we love and enjoy. The softer side of life, right? At an institution that started during a period of when our ancestors were enslaved. And so I'm humbled to be here to talk about art and to interface with y'all this evening. I had a chance to visit Hampton University yesterday, hallowed ground. At one point in time, artists didn't have the luxury of showing at the majority institutions, and those HBCUs were our ground to showcase our work and to network and to learn and to grow. I'm reminded of Benny Andrews and how he talked about it. Benny Andrews, an artist based in Georgia, no longer with us, but a phenomenal collage artist, and how he talked about we're all but a cog in the wheel of culture trying to move this thing forward, right? I also think about Margaret Burroughs, and if you don't know these names, please look them up. These are the people that added tremendous value to my life and to the culture and black visual culture. But Dr. Margaret Burroughs, who started the Southside Community Art Center, who started the Sabo Museum. The Southside Community Art Center in Chicago is the longest running cultural institution that was founded during the WPA. And one of her favorite quotes that I'm reminded of is she would always ask, "What will your legacy be?" I'm also thinking about my shero, Dr. Samela Lewis. Please look up Dr. Samela Lewis, icon, artist, contributor, scholar, institution builder. And her quote actually is in the front of Black Art in America, the building, when you first walk in, and it says, "Art is not a luxury, as many people think. It is a necessity. It helps to educate people and to store knowledge for generations to come." So that's the tradition of which I come from, although I'm not formally trained. I place myself in the continuum of those artists, those institution builders, and what we do with Black Art in America. All right, let me get into some of these slides. Dayu Bey MacArthur, I'll talk a little bit about how he fits into like this discussion. But this is the inside of our gallery at Black Art in America. But before I get into BAIA, let me talk about what actually built the company. I often tell people that, BAIA would not be here if I wasn't a successful artist. I've been able to find inroads and with collectors and institutions of people collecting my work. This is one of my photo montage pieces. I currently have a solo exhibition at the Museum of Art in DeLand, Florida, 40 works spanning the last 15 years. photo montage is just one of the processes of which I work. This next piece is another photo montage work, the listening room. And this piece right here is a piece that I did as part of a series, the Poor People's Campaign, where I'm thinking about children and how we live, basically using children as a jumping off point to talk about how we live in plain sight of a lot of these refineries and landfills and things that impact our health. And from there, I ended up doing a body of work that I call The Return to Eden, imagining Black people in sacred spaces, loving on each other, getting back to the core and essence of who we are as people. So what is Black Art in America? Black Art in America is a multifaceted media company, a place where you can buy and learn about art. We've recently established a foundation as well. We have a sculpture garden. We produce art experiences, art fairs around the country in various markets over the last 10 years. We represent artists. We work with estates. We've sold work to institutions. We've curated shows and have travel shows to a number of different markets. We currently have a show that we traveled to the Orr O'Keefe Museum in Biloxi, Mississippi, that features primarily works by contemporary artists. So this is our headquarters. This is what you would see when you come to Atlanta. This is the front of Black Art in America. We currently occupy a 4,000 square foot building, about 7,000 square foot sculpture garden on 3/4 of an acre. It's a special place. I would argue one of the most unique spaces in the art space in the region. I often talk about how I've been empowered by my collectors and patrons that support me, and BAIA is that return on that investment. Here, when Black Art in America started in 2010, I'm in Chicago, sitting around a table of artists and collectors, and we're having a lot of these same conversations we always have about, representation and how do we connect with other people who are interested in the material, and how do we get more attention on our artists and the works that we love. And then that's where I had that moment that, say that, as Obama would say, that, well, you be the change that you're looking for. And so that was the impetus of what later led to starting the company Black Art in America. And these are just a few of the people who will support what I do. Now, I've got a few celebrity collectors, but I really don't like to hone in on that, because the regular folk, the educators, the financial advisors, the doctors, and just regular people who have a passion for art, those are the ones that have supported this journey 99% of the time. And so I like to put the emphasis more on them. Right now we're in what I call BAIA 3.0, but the first version of Black Art in America, this is what it looked like. We became an educational resource where people could visit the website, learn about artists, learn about what was going on in the various art shows, exhibitions. It was a platform where artists could actually upload their work, upload their calendar, connect with people. It was more of a format like Facebook. And we've since grown over that time to BAIA 2.0 to BAIA 3.0, which is a fully integrated site, which we launched a couple months back, that houses all the brands of which we operate: Black Art in America, Everything Black, Do You Basel, Garden Art for the Soul, so on and so forth. As the largest entity focused on Black art, particularly from a media standpoint, these are some of our numbers, and this is all organic. 140,000 followers on Facebook, over 150,000 on Instagram, over 16,000 subscribers. We currently have a click-through rate of about 40%, which is tremendously high for those that follow e-blasts and things of that nature in terms of engagement. So, what do we do in media? I pride myself at this point on the number of articles that we paid to educate people about what's happening within the space. We've also sponsored podcasts. You can go to our SoundCloud and find a number of the podcasts that we've done, one of which is a talk that we had, a short interview with Dahu Bey, who, if you don't know his story, at the age of 16, he went to the infamous show exhibition Harlem on Our Mind, 1969, where artists were protesting the Metropolitan Museum, and he wanted to go see what all the fuss was about. And it wasn't until that point where he went to the exhibition and saw photographs of individuals that looked like him, people in his community, that he really understood what he could do with that camera that his auntie had gave him a year earlier. So you'll find that there are threads throughout our journey that intersect us all. One of the things that we're constantly doing too is, helping people to be aware of what's happening in the contemporary market. Contemporary artists like Delita Martin was one of our earlier interviews that took place several years back. And if you follow her trajectory over the last 5 years, you'll see how well she's done within the marketplace. Artists like Charmaine Menefield, who's doing great work in Atlanta and abroad as well. But we also make space to continue to tell the stories of the ones that came before. I always say stories untold are stories forgotten. And so, Richard Mayhew is still around. He's in his late 90s. But artists like Catlett, Louis Del Sar, Charles White, Reginald Gammon, and so many others have been stories that we've shared in what we call our BAIA bits as a way to introduce a new audience of people that's interested in African American material to the history and journey of these important artists. Right now, we probably got close to about 90 BAIA bits that we've done, spanning artists all the way back to Henry Ossabaw Tanner, moving forward, and so many others. I would encourage you, for those that are not following us, maybe you follow us on social media, but please visit the website and take advantage of this rich archive. At one point in time, we also used to do collector home tours, right? We all want to know who the collectors are, who's supporting this material, right? As artists, hey, that's our lifeline. As institutions, they're the ones that also often become patrons and later donate work. Well, this story right here was a story of Mrs. Galloway. Mrs. Galloway, who's holding this Ebony magazine, and in this magazine, they did a feature on, I think it was like 4 or 6 prominent African-American artists. And that inspired her to collect. They had Charles White in there. I think they had Romare Bearden in there, maybe Jacob Lawrence. But that's the role that media played back then in inspiring her to take up looking to collect art. And so that's been passed on in her family. Major Galloway, which is the man that's next to her in this photograph, is an avid collector based in D.C., following the lead of his auntie. And then Major's son is growing up in a house that has art on the walls and actively loves art and engaging and collecting the material. We've also done studio visits with artists. Barbara Bullock is an artist I would recommend anyone to look her work up. She's a phenomenal artist out of Philly. We did an interview with Barbara and shared that with the world. One of the things that we're doing is also, this is primarily via the foundation, but our mission is the same whether it's Black Art in America or the Black Art in America Foundation, is to document and preserve and promote. So everywhere I go, I'm an art junkie, and I'm just kind of looking around. And I always say, stories untold are stories forgotten. I'm at this exhibition at the Southwest Art Center in Atlanta. And it's an exhibition of women's clothing, right? Who would think that would be of interest to me? I'm an artist, I'm a guy, this and that. But these were clothes that were collected by one of Spelman's instructors in the theater department, and it told a story of women from the late 1800s and through like the 60s, and how fashion played a role in their daily lives. He had examples of material that was worn by Coretta Scott King and others. And so, but what he didn't have was a tool that he can use to share this collection with institutions and with other individuals. There used to be a saying that if there's no documentation of an exhibition, it didn't exist. So what we did was take it upon ourselves to put some resources toward this collection and to be able to document it and build a catalog. If you go to, if you subscribe to Black Art in America, perchance, we had an email that went out today that actually provided the link for you to access this catalog that's going to be for public consumption. And it's a tool for Kenneth Green, who's the curator of this collection, to use to seek out funding to support what he's doing, as well as exhibitions. And we also secured an exhibition of this exhibit with the Oral Keith Museum in Biloxi, Mississippi as well. So you'll find that a lot of this is based on relationships. Another thing that we're doing I'm really proud of is this is the gentleman pictured is Morris Austin, who we actually commissioned him to come in and help us digitize the photographs of Rufus Hinton. We're out and about collecting work, come to find out that one of the artists that we had recently acquired some works from he was using the photographs that his uncle shot in the 60s and 70s. He photographed for SNCC. He shot around Atlanta. He shot around New York, and had an archive that the public hasn't seen. Like, this work was tucked away. His uncle passed away over 10 years ago. It was left with the family. The family was trying to figure out, okay, what can happen with this material? We saw an opportunity. We saw something that has value, we believe, for the community and for those that are interested in photography, and also using that information to talk about the times. You know, he's got images of some of the artists like Faith Ringgold. He captured so much. I don't want to get into it. And so we took it upon ourselves with the foundation in order to start to digitize, and so we can offer that material to the general public. One of the things that we're doing at the gallery, we got a program coming up, a community quote-based program in February with Marvell Michelle, centered around women who have suffered from heart disease, stroke, and heart complications dealing with the heart. And so she's going to help them tell their story, and we're documenting that, providing an exhibition of that material at the gallery. So what's the importance of a gallery? You know, how do we go about finding and cultivating talent? I'll get into that a little bit. As a gallerist, it's a great way for us to introduce and showcase artists, you know, develop relationships with collectors, combine the two, a space to educate, host events, and for community gatherings. This is an artist, Ume, who was, you know, new to Atlanta, and we gave him his first major showing in Atlanta. This is him engaging with the public that came in, excited about his work, excited to tell those stories, and that's one of the things that we're proud to do at the gallery space, is introduce deserving artists to the community where we can have engagement and some sales and help the artists in this trajectory. One of the other things that we've done, I'm really proud of, because not only are we selling art, not only are we educating people, but we're really focused on creating opportunities. I like to say, what are we doing to piece the puzzle, right? And so once I had a solo show at the Columbus Museum in 2015, and I was able to, you know, forge some relationships with the collection committee and also the curator. And she was interested in some artists in Atlanta. I recommended a few, of which, you know, Charlie Palmer, Kevin Cole, and there was one other studio visit that we did. Long story short, the collection committee came to these various did these various studio visits, and they settled in on giving Kevin Cole a show. Kevin Cole is an artist to know that's based in Atlanta as well. And so, like, these are the things that we do from the standpoint of BAIA, connecting the dots, educating, you know, just a continuum of what we do. In 2012, there was a project that came along, Visions of Our 44th President, where they had 44 contemporary artists were invited to do a bust of Obama. And we were able to play a role in that, in identifying talent and suggesting artists to be participatory in this particular historic exhibition. The 44 bust is currently in the collection of the Charles H. Wright Museum, and they bring it out every so many years to the public. All right. How do we go about affecting an artist's trajectory? You know, I would say there's a number of different things that we do that's unique. I'll bring out a couple examples. We've got the first two pieces. To your left is work by Khalif Thompson, and to the right is Gerald Lavelle. Both are doing extremely well within the marketplace. We started working with Khalif about 2.5 years ago, and we had him on a 2-year exclusive. And some of the things that we did was not only, you know, give him gallery shows, we wrote articles, placed the work in, you know, showcased the work in art fairs, non-commercial exhibitions at institutions that we had relationships with. So a lot of work to the collectors, meaning having a database to call collectors up and say, you know, suggest material, and they trust your judgment based on the years of experience. Able to mentor, you know, to talk with them about their work, help them think through concepts and ideas and processes is another form. Some of the things we do. Become a sounding board. Actually underwrote a residency for Khalif. Also wrote his letter of recommendation to Yale University, and he's now in the graduate program at Yale University. And for those that are familiar with Yale and how influential the artists are that have come out of that in the marketplace, you'll know that that's very significant. We also leverage relationships with colleagues both at various institutions and at other media outlets to create opportunities. And some of the artists that we've pushed have been written up in Forbes and other publications. So it's not just about what we're doing at Black Art in America, but how do we go about leveraging the relationship that we have with other institutions and other people to create opportunities for artists. Many of the same things were done for Gerald Lavelle. When I first started working with Gerald, some of his early works were selling between $600 to $1,200. A large piece would be around $2,000. And this would be, 5-6 years ago. A lot has happened. The market has really shifted. 2 years ago, I was at Basel, and he's represented by a P-Pal gallery out in New York, and they had, basically a 5x5, the size of that large painting right there, selling at $50,000. That's how much the market has shifted for African-American art, for a number of contemporary artists. And also you'll find that as well with a lot of legacy artists, people who bought material back, 10, 20, 30 years ago. Many of those artists are having auction highs. I share this one story, which I don't know how we're doing on time. Like I said, I can ramble. I hope I'm not losing y'all out there, all right? But there's one of the stories I like. There was this young resident doctor who fell in love with this work by Barclay Hendricks. And this would have been around 1972, right? Newly married, ends up paying $1,200 for this Barclay Hendricks. And brought it home. The mother-in-law was like, told her daughter, like, you gotta get rid of this guy. Like, this guy ain't gonna, spending $1,200 on a piece of art. Like, what is this about? And so, long story short, I mean, it didn't stop him from his love and passion of collecting, but the foresight to pick up that material then in 1972 for $1,200, and to realize how the market has shifted, into today. 5 years ago, Barclay Hendricks' work was on the cover of our Art Basel publication, work selling. I think one of the auction highs at that time might have been around 200, 300,000. But the work commands now, in the millions, 1 to 2 million. And this doctor has several in his collection. The market has shifted, and it's like a snowball effect. We've seen how the prices have changed from like the early auctions of Swan, Charles White's, selling at $300,000, which was really huge back then, to like now, you can just add another zero and add a comma. That's how fast this market is shifting. So if you're collecting now, congratulations. And maybe you've seen some of this transpire in the marketplace. Not that everybody's collecting for those reasons. Here's just some examples of some of the publications that we've done for the artists that we've really pushed. Again, the importance of relationships, the importance of networking and building is one of the things that I talked about when I met with students earlier today. And I've got a really great relationship with John Guest at the Houston Museum of African American Culture. John Guest actually was the first institution to take Satiri and I's personal collection on exhibition, and we're hoping to travel our collection even more. Since then, we've actually gifted works. Like, I'm about to turn 50 in a couple months, and Satiri just had a birthday, just turned 21, but we're constantly thinking about legacy and how we give back and the things that we're doing, and that's part of it. We can't take it with us. What can we do to place it with some institutions that can be in the service of the public good? The piece to the right is a work by Alpha Conte. Alpha Conte is a contemporary artist I've been high on for a long time. Tremendous artist working out of Atlanta. This is one piece that's in our collection. This is also a piece that while I was on the board of the Bo Bartlett Center, I had worked with them to showcase this piece as part of a relationship that I had with them to show introduce works by African American artists to the museum. Jamal Barber's an artist working out of Atlanta, printmaker, that we should know. And I bring up Jamal because we've got a great relationship. I remember when Jamal was kind of coming into his own, trying to figure out exactly what he was, what was going to be his medium of choice. And once he talked about his interest in printmaking, I said, man, that's what you should do, you know, because I'm a firm believer in going to, you know, the areas that's not heavily occupied, you know, where you can kind of get in and get in where you fit in and really make a difference. There's not a lot of people because of the process of printmaking. Steve can, more than anybody, knows way more than me. It's not for everybody. And so I told him, and I think that could be a really good fit. And so not only did we purchase his first edition that he did, of which we later donated one of them, part of the collection that we gave to the Columbus Museum, but I reached out to Curly Houghton, who is a master printmaker, and suggested that Curly invite Jamal up for the residency. Curly's pull and pull work for the likes of Elizabeth Catlett, Faith Ringgold, Sam Gilliam, like real heavyweights in the industry. He's the man. So it was we were happy to do it. We've been ahead of the curve in a number of different ways. How many are familiar with Art Basel? Ever heard the term Art Basel Art Fair? Well, good, many of y'all. In 2011, I made my first trip to Art Basel. And for those that don't know, it's the largest art fair that takes place in the Americas. I mean, you're talking within a 4 to 5 day period, $500 million of art is sold. You know, you got this international gallery marketplace. I remember being at one of the press conferences, and they talked about how there were more private jets that flew in for Art Basel than flew in for the Super Bowl. It's just a place where, you know, you got to be aware of what's happening. But back in the early 2000s, 2011 when I went, you know, it was rare that you would find works by African American artists hanging. You would find African American artists, you know, kind of going through the art fairs. Like it wasn't really a thing at that point. And so we decided on behalf of the BAIA team at the time that we wanted to do something about it. You can't have this international art fair. All this work being sold, all these collectors and curators and industry professionals being here, and we're not in the mix. So we came up with this campaign called Do You Basel, right? And we engaged in social media with you know, it was a really crazy campaign, which, you know, in terms of what we ended up using to kind of spark the interest and later just make Miami a destination for artists of color and industry professionals. But it worked. It was so successful that members from the team of the producers of the main fair reached out to congratulate us on the level of interest. It was creating that much buzz with people saying, hey, what is Art Basel? You know, we need to be there and go and check things out. The first time, you know, in the early days of Black art in America, I had to find my footing, right? We spent really 2.5 years before we really figured out how to kind of make this thing work. It was a passion project. Well, one of the first shows that we did after Art Basel was a show that I produced in New York at the Faison Firehouse Theater. And that was the first show that led to basically our model for how we present and produce shows today. Exhibition, programming, and performance, right? Merging contemporary art with legacy art and presenting that to the public with programming to go around that. This was an important piece that we actually showed at the fair. Charles White actually had some curators come in like, hey, how did you get your hands on that material? Like, well, you know, we connected a little bit. What's interesting is when we showed this work in 2013, the price on this work was, we had it listed at $225,000, you know, based on what we felt the market was and some of the auction records and things of that nature. Didn't sell it. But I'm in Miami, I want to say 2018, 2017, I'm thinking it was 2018, and the exact piece is in one of the, I won't say the name, one of the galleries, one of the New York galleries that many people know, many of the institutions buy from, and it was listed at $950,000, you know? So, hey, it's, you know, sometimes it's a matter of where you're shopping, right? But we had that same material. This is some of the work that we had at that first show in New York. The larger piece in the middle is actually a piece by Norman Lewis. It's one of the rare figurative works that you would find He's most known for his abstractions. This is a show that we later did in 2015, and we featured and highlighted the work of Reginald Gammon. Reginald Gammon was a member of Spiral. Spiral was a historic group formed in the mid-'60s, right around the time of the March on Washington. A group of artists that band together to figure out, hey, how can we lend our voice to this thing that's happening in the community, and this thing that's happening around the country. What can we do as artists to be participatory? And so definitely look up Spiral, but Gammon was one of the artists that was there. We've since built a relationship with the family, with the estate. We represent his work within the marketplace. We did a catalog, showcase 50 years of Reginald Gammon's work, and we continue to keep his legacy alive by continuing to share his work, to tell his story, and that's what it takes. All right, so collecting original art. As I mentioned, Satiri and I are avid collectors, but we're also art dealers, You've got one of the preeminent artists in our space, working right here, Steve Prince. If you don't have a work by Steve, shame on you, right? He's right here. He's right here. I even asked him, man, it's a faculty show. Where's your work? So anyway, I ain't gonna get into all that. We got Alfred Conte. I'm high on Alfred. The crazy thing is, I remember the first Alfred that we bought was not when he, he's coming to his own. Like this is his signature work. But the first piece we bought was from a gallery in Atlanta, a Biscuit Gallery, and it was a small piece that he did. And I think that piece is like $600 or $800. But I can assure you, Alfred's work, he's currently showing at Basel through Kavi Gupta. He also has a gallery relationship with Mertis in Baltimore. But Gupta is a gallery that's really taking him to the fairs. Like, he sold out at Frieze. He sold out at Basel. Currently, a significant piece the size of the one that we've got two that are like 84 by 48. Those works in the range of, 40 to 60,000. 5 years ago, you're talking 15,000, 16,000, somewhere in that range, just to kind of give you a sense. I project that Alfred is one of those guys that would definitely eclipse, 100,000 for a significant work within the next 3 years. The Bum Bum Bunnies to the far left is one of the images from Reginald Gammon, who I mentioned again, is one of the artists that was a part of the Spiral group. We've been able to place his work with a few institutions within the last several years. George Hunt was my earliest influence. Many people, when they see my work and see where I'm at now, and they think of Romeo Bearden. I didn't know anything about Bearden when I was, I'm an art school dropout. I knew George Hunt. That was a man. It was the most famous artist in Memphis. Phenomenal collage artist. He did all the Memphis Inmate posters for like the last 30 years up until he passed away a few years ago. But he was my early influence. Love Mr. Hunt. He was the one that actually suggested that I move to Atlanta to pursue my art full time. Kerry James Marshall, we got material by KJM. If you don't know this guy, you hadn't been paying attention to the contemporary art world. His auction record made a tremendous amount of noise. A few years ago, he had a piece that sold, well, before I tell you what it sold for, how many people were familiar with Kerry James Marshall? All right, how many people are familiar with the auction record of the last few years ago, right? So, some years back, he was commissioned to do this piece for the Port Authority, and he was paid $25,000 for it. This could have been 15, 20 years ago, right? Well, about 4, maybe 5 years ago at most, that piece was sold at auction, and Puffy bought it, Diddy, and it sold for like 21, 22 million. Outside of Basquiat, like that's record territory for an artist of color. And so we don't have his major works, but for those collectors that just want to have something of his in their collection, we do come across some material. Kevin Cole, again, is an artist that I would recommend, you become aware of. He's a member of Afro-Cobra based in Atlanta. Kevin Cole is one of those artists that, we don't represent exclusively. We offer his material. We've advocated for Kevin's work. Just briefly, when we talk to people about Kevin's work at the gallery, his work is influenced by a story that his grandfather had told him, and basing an experience. So when Kevin got to be 18, of voting age, he had shared with his grandfather that he really wasn't really convinced that his vote would matter. So he was thinking, why? And so his grandfather said, boy, you need to go out into the country and go down this road and go to this tree and come back and see me. So Kevin does that, right? He goes visit this tree and he comes back and he said, Papa, what's the deal with that tree? It was kind of, just kind of eerie. What's the situation? Why did you send me there? And his grandfather said, boy, black folks were lynched by their neckties trying to go vote. It's your duty to go and vote. And that became a muse within Kevin's work. So when you see like these forms floating in and out of the picture plane, and those represent the neckties of the various individuals who lost their life trying to go and exercise their right to vote in this country. My last example, Brittany Leanne Williams, and I love to share these stories about how fast the market just changes, So I'm in Chicago and just doing what I do, looking for art, hanging out with some of my friends and colleagues, and I had a friend there, Talmadge, who's a member of Diaspora Rhythms, the collectors group, who I mentioned. I was sitting around a dinner table talking about art and whatnot at the start of Black Art, what started the concept of Black Art in America. And so he takes me to go see the studio of Brittany's work. And when I was there, I was like, okay, I can see where her work could fit in this marketplace. I saw who the gallery that was, giving her a show. I saw the residencies that she was in. And I was like, okay, let me get some material. So I picked up 4 small works and one significant painting, on canvas, 7 feet by 5 feet, somewhere in that scale. So this would have been 2018, I'm thinking. So during the pandemic, I'm talking with Talmadge. I say, hey, man, you ever heard from, what's going on with Brittany? Just checking in on the investment, right? And he said, man, Brittany just had a show. And I said, how much, like the piece, the size that I got? He said, man, they had that work priced at $80,000 to $100,000 and everything sold. And I got my piece for less than 10, like 2.5 years earlier, So it's not, people collect for different reasons. Some people collect for passion, prestige, profit, sometimes they intersect. Not all, I would argue, not all art appreciates. I work with a lot of collectors that bought stuff that, I couldn't find another buyer for, They bought it because they love it. They bought it for whatever reason they bought it. And we bought a lot of material like that too, but being in the space that I'm in, I come across talent. I come across individuals, I'm like, hey, they got that je ne sais quoi. They got something that is going to hit within the market. And sometimes it pans out, and when it does, it can be very significant. So yeah, it's been good. This the Dorsey's Black Art in America collection is just a screenshot from the show that we traveled to Houston at the Houston Museum of African American Culture. The sculpture at the top is a work by Woodrow Nash. Love Woodrow's work. He has a cult following, The catalog to the right is a catalog that I negotiated as a part of the gift that we gave to the museum. Is that, okay, so the gift consisted of some half legacy artists, half contemporary artists that we wanted to be in the collection. But as a part of us gifting this material, we negotiate, say, hey, if we're going to do this, we need an exhibition and we need a catalog. And so we got both. And the catalog is the evidence of what took place. It's a picture of my lovely and supportive wife, the backbone of Black Art in America, CEO Dorsey, again, of 28 years. And this is our story. This is Black Art in America. This is what we've done. So thank you.